What's up, YouTube? This is going to be part two about how I found out I was in complete kidney failure. Now, like I said in the other video, I had these strips that I had to use, and I had to, urine on them. And based on the color, I would know if my kidney function was good or if it was failing. So I had to use these strips every day. Um, for a while, they were green and everything was okay for the most part. And then it got to the point where the fluid was just building. My face was fatter, had like a blowfish type of face. Um, that was more so probably the prednisone and just eating up everything I seen in sight. And like the fluid would build up in my stomach, my legs, my feet. And it got to the point where I just I would sleep so much. I would be so weak. I would just want to sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep. And it came back time to go and, follow up with my doctor. And I remember going there and, she was talking to me about the symptoms I was having. She didn't really ask my parents because I would know better than me. Now, when I got sick, like I said, that's when I started to pay attention to my body because it was like the beginning stages of my illness. My body was going through so many changes from one day to the next. It would it would happen that fast. And I would always pay attention to, what was going on, how I felt, what it was, just different things. I was real particular about, expressing that to my doctor. And I basically told her, that I pretty much was weak. I just wanted to sleep all the time. I didn't feel good. I just didn't feel good. And I was like, the strips were darker. And, she did testing to see my creatinine. And your creatinine is basically how much you're urinating. Because if people don't know, your kidneys and your urine are pretty much linked together. And your liver and your bowel is linked together. So my creatinine on how much I was urinating had decreased so much. And what that told her is that my kidneys were no longer working. So she told me that I was in complete renal failure. She explained it to me in layman's terms. My doctor was amazing. I thank God that he put a doctor like that, in the midst of me. She pretty much explained it to me in layman's terms, and told me that I would have to start something called dialysis. And when she told me I was in complete kidney failure, I remember just crying. I was crying and just crying and crying. And, she just let me cry it out. She comforted me, but also just let me know, what I would have to deal with. It was a lot to take in. I was young. And this was about 12 when I found out I was in complete kidney failure. So it was a children's hospital. So, once I got myself together, She was like, I'm going to take you down to where other kids are that are doing dialysis. Um, so you can see, what you'll have to go through or whatever. So she took me down to the dialysis unit there, and I broke down again. Um, it was just scary for me, like, and I didn't like needles, and it was just scary, a scary thing. I was so scared. I was so scared. And so I didn't end up leaving the hospital. Um I don't think. I had to she talked to me about choosing the options of how to dialyze. There was three options I could have did. There's peritoneal dialysis, where they can dialyze you through your stomach, and you wouldn't have to go through a unit to do that. You could do it at home, and you don't have to get needles. Um, well, for me, that was out the window. I didn't want nothing in my stomach, and no, I didn't like that. And then I had the option of a fistula or a graft. And what a fistula would be was an artery and a vein connected to make an artificial vein, because the dialysis needles are not small needles. They can't go into your regular vein. It would blow it completely out. So I had that option. And then I had the option of getting a graft, which would be like something artificial that they put in your arm to, or wherever they were going to put it, in your arm, your leg, wherever they could put it in there. And you could do dialysis like that. So even though hemo, you have to get stuck a lot, it's the better option. Because a lot of, like, the peritoneal, you keep a lot of infection. And, oh yeah, and the catheter. Now, when I started dialysis, catheter was an option. Like, you could keep it for as long as you want. Now, they don't want you to keep catheters. Excuse me, y'all. If you don't have to, because it's easy to get an infection. And once you get an infection with those things, they have to come out because it's connected to your heart. So, but when you first start off, you get I had to get a catheter because that was my only option to get dialysis until I would get my fistula placed, which is what I chose. Get my fistula placed, and it takes maybe 6 to 8 weeks for it to be ready to use. So once again, I didn't leave the hospital that day. I was in surgery. And I mean, it just happened so fast just thinking about it. And it wasn't that bad, like I said, when I had the catheter, because you don't get stuck. You just get hooked up. But once my fistula healed and I had to actually get the needles, listen, I was screaming and hollering. I know people thought I was just like, she's doing a lot. But, like, when you have never went through that and you have to go through it, all of a sudden it's very different for you, and it's it's painful, especially because you're not dealing with little needles. So they had different things to try to ease it so that it didn't hurt as much. So they had this thing when I was coming. They had something called cold spray, which would pretty much numb it enough, and then when they stuck it, you didn't really feel it. But nonetheless, it was still a lot to take in all at once. I had to do dialysis 3 times a week for about 3.5 hours. going back and forth from where I was to dialysis was probably like an hour or two. And being that the area that the hospital was, traffic getting back home made it even longer. So it was it was something different. Um and when I started dialysis, I didn't do good at all. Like, I guess it was just because even my body knew to change. Like I said, it happened so fast. You go from, I guess being a healthy kid to boom, just your body, you having to deal with all this medical issues. So I guess my body knew the changes too, and it didn't adjust too good to dialysis at first. So um I can remember that I was always sick. And being on dialysis, it drops your immune system. So as far as like common colds and things like that, I could always get sick easy. And like I said, a common cold for somebody else, if they gave it to me, could turn into something more for me just because of my immune system. So I dealt with that a lot, especially going to school and being around kids. A lot of kids' parents send them to school even though they're sick, knowing they're sick. You know, not considerate of other kids and what they may have going on. Um, so I was dealing with that a lot, and dialysis had took my appetite because the diet was so. Oh, the diet was just so crazy. It was just it was a lot. It was a lot. But you know what? I'll just come back for part 3 and just tell you what it was like as far as being on dialysis. And how rough it was from that aspect. But thank y'all for listening, and I'll talk to y'all later.